From the PSIA-AASI satellite studios in Portland, Oregon, I'm George Thomas. You're listening to First Chair. What a great guest we have for you today. Lou Rosenfeld is joining us from beautiful Lake Louise. And Lou, you've been out sliding, it sounds like pretty much every day for the past 10 days. Life sounds pretty amazing in Lake Louise, aside from just being beautiful.
Well, it is. It's been a record year, but if you've ever skied here in the wintertime, you know that it's dramatically colder than it is down south of the border. So even without a record year, skiing into May is typical for Lake Louise in sunshine. Really typical. Sunshine will be open. Louise will close, I think, in a week and a half, and Sunshine will be open until at least mid-May every year.
Wow. Well, I'm very envious of you right now, and happily so, though. I'm glad you had a good winter. We're going to be chatting about an article that you wrote for 32 Degrees on binding position on skis, and you sent me a quote that really resonated, and I want to start out with that quote and go from there. But you said, I made this shift with one of our college athletes at camp this past fall. 12 weeks to get him into the front of the ski by trying to change his movement pattern, or 12 minutes to move his binding. It worked. Yeah.
Now, that wasn't my quote.
Change.
that wasn't my quote. It wasn't my athlete. It was actually an instructor and coach, PSIA instructor and coach, who added it as a comment to my article that is now, I believe, on Instagram and Facebook, posted by PSIA. So that was his quote and his finding of how effective it can be, how instantly effective it can be to move someone to a better position, and how difficult a binding position can make it for someone to achieve a good, solid, balanced position on a ski.
And I'd really like to discuss our own skiing and the positioning of our bindings, but also as instructors, is this something we need to be looking for with our students? And if so, how do we make a change that we really can't do out on the hill? But what are some things that we could be looking for, maybe to give them recommendations? Does that make sense?
Sure. It absolutely makes sense.
So, and you're not talking about feet on a ski, you're talking about millimeters. How can making such a small incremental movement of a binding's mounting position make such a difference? And what, back in the 80s, didn't we go with ball of the foot?
Well, probably a little bit before that, but if you read the article, ball of foot center of running surface, when I did the first research and helped with when I was getting my master's degree. That's why I came to Calgary, to get a master's degree in biomechanics and mechanical engineering. And while I was here, I became involved helping with research for Atomic on binding position. And that would have been in about 1999. And when I talked to the head of design for Atomic in 1999, we already had shorter skis, to the comments everybody's made about long skis, short skis. And we already had short skis. We already had shaped skis. We already had all of that. And for their World Cup racers, they were using ball of foot center of running surface as the beginning point for determining binding position. So nothing has changed from the 80s or the 70s. Ball of foot center of running surface was still a valid starting point for setting up a ski, as long as the ski doesn't have rocker. And I think it still holds true.
And how is that determined? Because I know we have to have a, kind of a central point to start with, but we're all such different sizes and shapes and heights, and we're talking about majorly different leverage points. And I don't even want to start to get into the math and the physics.
Yeah, I agree with you. And so there has to be some place to start. I mean, there just has to be, or else we don't even know, we'll end up with the ski mounted with your foot on the tail. So there has to be some place to start, and somewhere along the line, I imagine through some testing, I don't know. For all we know, ball of foot center running surface was used in skis in Norway in the 1600s. I mean, I don't know when that point became the way to mount skis. But the first skis I ever mounted were in the 70s, and then skis weren't marked in any way. And ball of foot center running surface was the way we mounted 100% of the skis that we sold. And I'm sure every other shop did the same thing. It is the way it was done.
And then when did it change to center of boot?
Sometime around the 80s. I don't remember. I was there then, but I don't remember if it was 80 or 81 or 79, 80. But right about then is when it changed.
So kind of at the end of the disco era.
Yes. The end of the disco era, we decided to make everything easier and mark skis.
And so what was kind of the evolution from that point? Where did you have the engineer myth actually listed here, where instructors told students that engineers designed the ski to work exactly at this mark? Is there ever any truth to that?
No.
Oh, okay.
No, there isn't. I mean, when I talked to the head of design for Atomic, I asked, and I was part of the research. I was an assistant on the research, but the lead researcher had never worked in a ski shop. He was a good skier. He was familiar with binding position. He was familiar with a lot, but he had never worked in a ski shop. So he had never actually mounted skis in a ski shop. He didn't know the process. I had done it for years. So I was the person in the research group that was given the job of talking to the head of design for Atomic and asking all the right questions to fill out and help us set the methods for the research. And one question absolutely specifically was, how do you mount skis for your World Cup skiers? The answer was ball of foot center of running surface, and then each athlete tests from there. Okay, so that's a starting point. And then different athletes may choose somewhere else different from ball of foot center of running surface, but that was the starting point. The next question was, how do you mount skis for your recreational skiers? How do you determine the binding position for your recreational skiers? Well, we send ski testers out on the skis to test the skis, and then they meet and have a consensus, and they recommend the binding position. So what they're really recommending is where the center of the boot mark should be on the ski. So it isn't determined by the engineers, it's determined by ski testers.
And what are people looking for when they're trying that out? How are they feeling? What are they really going to notice if the ski or if the binding is mounted just a little too far back or a little too far forward? What should someone look for? What do they want?
Well, before skis were marked and we were using ball of foot center of running surface, we still had a window of forward 1 centimeter or back 1 centimeter from ball of foot center of running surface.
Oh, that big.
Okay. Yeah. So forward 1 centimeter was, because remember, we didn't used to have necessarily slalom skis and GS skis. We had the same ski, right? You made it a slalom ski by moving it forward 1 centimeter, and you made it a GS ski by moving the binding position back 1 centimeter from ball of foot center of running surface. So we had a 2 centimeter sweet spot that we thought everybody could ski, and you just moved it forward or back according to how you wanted your ski to feel and how you wanted the ski to respond for your skiing. But if you wanted to make it a little quieter and smoother and slower to respond and more stable at speed, you moved it back 1 centimeter and turned it into a GS ski. If you wanted it to be really quick and lively, you moved it forward 1 centimeter. I think your question is, why did we start marking skis and abandon ball of foot center of running surface? And I never asked that question specifically, but based on being in a shop for so many years, I can tell you a couple things. First, it takes time to find the center of running surface of the ski. and it's a business like any other. And if I can mount 10 pairs of skis in a day versus 15 pairs of skis in a day, then mark the skis and let me do 15 pairs of skis in a day so I don't have to measure anymore, right? The other thing is I've done this presentation on binding position for Sun Valley Ski School probably 5 times now. And as part of the presentation, I take my boot, I ski at 27. I'm a men's, one foot's 10 and a half, the other foot's an 11. So I ski at 27 Mondo, 315 boot. And I take that boot and I give it to everyone at the presentation with a tape measure and a slip of paper and say, please tell me how far it is from the tip of the toe lug to the ball of my foot. All they have is my boot. Just like in the old days when I was down in the workshop mounting bindings, I didn't have a person there. I just had their boot, right? I had their boot, I had their skis, and my job was to say, there's the ball of the foot. So same thing with ski instructors, some of them 25 or 30 years of experience, to all the instructors in the room, where's my ball of foot? And we got ranges from 5 centimeters from the toe lug to the ball of my foot to 12 centimeters from.
Wow.
Yes. So we're talking.
That's a little outside that window you were talking about.
So much bigger than the window. And so you can imagine that in the old days, if we can say that, the same thing was happening in a workshop. I was just guessing at where the ball of foot was. And so was every other mechanic everywhere in the world, was just guessing. Nobody was, the customer wasn't standing there. And we put their foot in the boot and opened the boot up and said, there's the ball of your foot right there. And I'm going to make a mark on the boot. Never happened. So we were just guessing. And you can imagine, I mean, your reaction was perfect. I mean, how much different can a ski if it's mounted 5 to 7 centimeters differently? It's enormous. Yeah.
I mean, you're talking about the magic of 4 millimeters, and
yeah. It's amazing. Wow. So without asking the question, it's easy to see the benefits of the marking system. There's problems with it, but the benefit is it let manufacturers be in charge of the way their skis skied. And they have some consistent results every single day, because everywhere in the world, we were mounting skis the same. There was no guess. It was not like I went to my friends and said, I really like this Vocal Zebra. And then they went to a different shop and had their skis mounted, and they ended up 3 centimeters different than me, and they hated the skis, right? And that could have happened in the old days. Easily.
So not so much anymore with the marking.
Not at all anymore with the marking, except the markings brought their own problems.
Such as?
Well, if ball of foot over center running surface was the valid way to mount bindings and was the valid way to determine where your foot belongs relative to the center of running surface of the ski, now we still allow variation of that, because if we always locate the center of boot in the same place, that means someone with a short foot has the ball of foot further back on the ski than someone with a longer foot. So it's consistent now, but we still have the same problems. Not to the same degree, not to 5 centimeters anymore, but to 2 or 3 centimeters for sure.
So tell us about the magic of 4 millimeters. When you're giving this presentation to instructors, what are we looking for? Why would I want to move my binding 1 notch forward?
Well, I don't know that you want to move your bindings specifically 1 notch forward. The reason to try 1 notch forward.
Exactly. Why do I want to try it?
You want to try it because of all the things we've just been saying. let's say you're an athlete with a shorter foot. With a shorter foot than a men's 26, than a 26 Mondo. It means that the ball of your foot is back on the ski relative to someone with a longer foot. So the ski is skiing differently for you. Why not try and move it forward? I mean, to me, it's that simple. There's nobody I talk to at any time at Atomic, at Head, at Stuckley, at Nordica. We did research for Nordica. No one ever said our engineers determine this is exactly precisely where your foot has to be, and it is perfect for every single person that ever puts their foot on that ski. Nobody ever said that. So knowing what we know about ball of foot center running surface and how skis respond to different foot placement, it's all we need to know, in my opinion, to say, I might as well experiment with a different position. I may like it more, I may like it less, but I'll learn something, and somewhere along the line, I may like it more. It may turn out that the position the manufacturer picked is perfect for you on that ski. It may, but then you go and ski on another manufacturer's ski, and they may have blown it by a couple centimeters. And you won't know unless you move the bindings.
So some of those skis that I've tried where I'm just like, these are magic. It's maybe not just the ski, but it's because the binding is in exactly the right spot for my foot and my build.
When I opened my ski shop in 2003, after doing the research for Nordica, one of the first things I did was grabbed every ski I could, and we didn't have rocker then, so it was valid to still measure the center of the running surface, and I measured where the center of the running surface was. And what I found, now this was a while ago, right? This is 25 years ago. But what I found was that skis that I would have said, or you might have said, if we read Ski Magazine's review of the ski, they would have said, this manufacturer's ski is very smooth, very stable at speed, holds very well, is hard to ski. Ski it aggressively, don't get in the back seat, stay forward, right? Unforgiving ski. Another ski, they would have said, light and lively and quick, really fun, really easy. Well, what I found was if I grouped those two skis, those two types of skis, the skis that were quick and lively and fun and easy were mounted forward by several centimeters of the skis that were, I mean, there is no doubt about it. It was easy to measure, and they were off by several centimeters. So what I learned from that was that now that we had marks on skis, it was clear that manufacturers were using the binding position as a way to tune the characteristics of their ski. If the manufacturer wanted to say our ski is wonderful at speed, we're going to move the bindings back. You may find it really hard to ski, but that's your decision, right?
Now, you talk about the skill gap. And one of the things I was thinking when I was looking at the article was, how does this apply to rental skis where you've got so much movement in the binding because you've got such a variability of foot size using the same ski? I mean, you could have someone my height, I have a size 11 foot, but maybe they have a size 13 or 14.
Yeah, well,
they have size 8, and that's going to be a huge difference on that ski.
And everything I just said still applies, because if you remember rental bindings, they're marked according to your boot sole length. So they move symmetrically, heel and toe at the same time, further apart or closer together according to your boot sole length, but they are still keeping the center of the boot in the same place within a millimeter or two, right?
Okay.
So whether you're a size 22 in that ski or a size 30 in that ski, the center of your boot is in almost exactly the same place. So the ball of your foot, as we're talking, is floating all over the place. So the skis work completely differently for those two people.
Quick moment here. Did you know that you could support the future of snow sports education through a gift in your will or estate? Legacy giving to the PSIA-AASI Education Foundation helps create lifelong opportunities for instructors. Learn more by dropping down the About tab on thesnowpros.org.
And is that something you look for when you're working with a class and someone's having a lot of trouble picking it up? Do you ever check the bindings and just
I do, of course, all the time. And also, but we're talking about something that's difficult to talk about as a ski instructor, right?
Yes, and I'm not recommending anyone do this, but as this is your area of study, I just couldn't imagine that you don't.
So I look at it, if you know, and I decide whether or not to make the recommendation. And then I make the recommendation and let my student decide whether they will let me move their bindings. Sometimes I go into the shop. I'm a little unique as a ski instructor in that I'm indemnified by many manufacturers from when I used to own my own store, right? So it's a difficult topic. The topic is valid, but getting to actually adjust my student binding is not so easy from a liability standpoint.
Right. No, I mean, I would not touch a binding at all. Yeah. It would be, we're going to the shop. Maybe this is something you can address if you're looking, but it is something that you who qualified and you're certified to be able to do this, that is something you do look at.
I look at it all the time, and kind of automatically, I think there's an implication that what we're doing here applies more to women, as if there's something biomechanically, different about women. This isn't apply to women because of some difference between women and men. It applies to women. At least anatomically, it applies to women because their feet are shorter, typically. So the feet are shorter, so the ball of the foot has moved back on the ski relative to mine. So it applies to men that are in a size 24 boot just as well, right? So, but if I'm teaching a woman, it's more likely to come up as something we should try.
We've talked about slalom skis and GS skis, and can you talk about the all mountain compromise?
Yeah, I think you're referring to the woman I worked with from Sun Valley Ski School, who we made some adjustments in her binding position and then determined that she didn't like where she ended up with. She loved the spot for carving, and then when she went and tried it in moguls, it was too far forward.
Correct.
And that's absolutely valid. But that's what we've already talked about, in that binding position is absolutely a compromise. And there's, no matter what we do, even if you like the position forward more than you like the manufacturer's position, there's still a limit to how far forward it can be for all mountain skiing. So with her, this is a woman that had been training. I met the first year I was in Sun Valley, and on my first day skiing with Sun Valley Ski School. And she was going to take the level 3 exam the end of that season. And we were talking on the chairlift and about what she was working on and difficulties she was having. And I said, sounds to me like maybe we could move your bindings forward a little bit. So we did, 1 click, 4 millimeters. She felt it, she liked it. She didn't do flip-flops, she didn't do handsprings, but she liked it, and we kept it there. And then I said, I think we should try it further forward, but we ran out of time together and we didn't ski together anymore for the rest of the season until 2 weeks before her exam. And then we just happened to be on a chairlift together. She had been training all year in 4 millimeters forward. And 2 weeks before her exam, we're together again on a chairlift. And I said, have you been using the new binding position? And she said, yeah, I've been using it all year. I said, I think we should move it further forward. And to my surprise, she said, okay. And we moved it at least another centimeter. I don't remember precisely how far we moved it, but she would have ended up
a lot.
It's a lot, especially because we're starting from already 4 millimeters forward. So we ended up somewhere around 1.5 centimeters to 2 centimeters forward. And she loved it. It was amazing. You could see the difference in her skiing right away. But so she left it there. And then that was the end of our time together for the day. But then when she went away from, we had been skiing an easy groomed run and dynamic short radius turns. And when she went away from that, skied bumps, it was too far forward. So it was too far forward for bumps, but it was amazing for making dynamic short radius turns on groomers. So she moved it back a little bit, probably 1 click, and got it, to a new compromised position. There's no one position that is absolutely the best you can possibly do for every person, every ski condition, everything they run into. What she really liked that was wonderful for dynamic short radius turns on groomers was too far forward in bumps. So we moved it back a little bit. It became good in bumps, better in bumps than it had been, not quite as good as she liked it for short radius turns, but 1.5 centimeters forward from the factory is still enormously better than the way the ski had been from the factory. So it's a compromised position for sure.
Lou, in conclusion, just anything to the membership about, is this something you encourage us to go out and experiment with?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, there's, skis I like, skis I don't like, skis you probably like, skis you don't like. And without understanding about binding position, you may not even know what you don't like. I mean, the feeling of the ski that you don't like, but you may think that it's the ski design when it's as simple as that manufacturer chose to mount the bindings further back to make it more stable at speed. And another manufacturer that you might like has chosen a more forward position to make the ski quicker and livelier. So there's a lot we can do to tune skis just by adjusting the binding position. And with modern bindings, it's so
change. This is something that we can do quickly and just go right out and try some different positions.
With new system bindings, especially almost every carving ski now comes with this. You can't even buy them as flat skis anymore, right? Buying just a ski is disappearing from the range of things we can buy. It's here's a ski, here's a binding, here's a system. And the new system bindings are so adjustable. I just can't see a reason not to experiment. And first, because you may ski better immediately, you may find a position you like more immediately, and just for the education about how sensitive skis are to binding position that you get to then apply to teaching your students.
Lou, so many more questions for you. We just don't have time. I'd love to have you back for some discussion, but I really appreciate you taking the time to chat with us right now.
Thank you. It was my pleasure. I'll come back anytime.
Thank you so much. And from the PSIA-AASI Satellite Studios in Portland, Oregon, I'm George Thomas. Thanks so much for listening to First Chair.
So that was good, George? You're happy?
That was very good. Yes. Hang on just a sec. I'm going to hit the stop record. We've got the translation, or the transcription, which is excellent. Stop recording. There it is.